What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Brandon's Face. It's the podcast about a playlist. I'm Jonathan Beardsley.
And I'm Brandon May.
We hope you're all doing well. This is the first part of a two-part finale we're doing to end our Album of the Year series for 2024, where we talk about just our favorite albums by genre. This week, we're going to be doing rock, which, what the fuck is rock in 2024, man? We've been doing a broad conversation to start every episode kind of about that genre in the year, but I really don't know how to define what rock music is. For the purposes of this episode, the albums we'll be talking about today are mostly indie, alternative, emo, pop punk, maybe a little post-hardcore. We're going to be doing all the heavier stuff next week. Your metal, core, prog, thrash, death, doom,
Death.
what have you. So this week we'll keep it on the lighter end of things. But man, where is rock music now? I feel like I'm hearing more riffs just in music in general again.
I think guitars are coming back, bro.
In all genres, right?
Yeah, I think guitars as a whole are coming back. I think that rock bands are having a slight resurgence. I don't know if you've seen, I'm not on the TikTok, but I've heard that Creed is very popular on TikTok. In
They did
fact,
a New Year's Eve show.
in fact, they are touring. They're coming to my neck of the woods. I will not be attending, but good for everybody who is fans of Creed. That
They
get to
are
see that.
selling a replica of the Cowboys jersey who were during the Thanksgiving halftime show in the 90s. So, and it says Stap on the back, of course. Be sure to cop that if you're going
That's
to that.
amazing.
This is great
There's,
merch.
man, and then there's a couple of bands like, okay, maybe it's not a band, but I think he has a dedicated touring band, Noah Khan, and necessarily not rock and roll, but he makes guitar music with a band.
I will
He
agree he makes guitar music, and I will leave it at that.
Hosier coming back is,
Yes.
I mean, wildly popular right now, which is great for them. I'm not a gigantic fan, but good for them.
Is it a them? I always just associate it with the dude, but yeah, I guess
It might
it
be
is
the
a full
dude.
band. I
Did
mean,
you
I
know that
think
Tame Impala is only one guy?
I did know that, or I'd heard something about that, I think. It's Win Butler, right? That's Tame Impala.
Yep. That's
Yeah,
him.
knew it. I mean, I have no idea how to quantify this conversation into any like distilled thing, but I do feel like our lists that and the albums that were our favorites this year are going to at least reflect our taste in music as it is now. I think that the past few years we've been doing this the scene is back thing. I feel like this is the least scene heavy playlist in terms of rock music I've had all decade, and
Yep.
I'm really excited to get into it with you, man. Um,
Me
m-
too.
my favorite album of the year for rock music is Mannequin Pussy, I Got Heaven. This one
Hey,
it's flawless. It is a perfect album for what modern rock is and should be. It's got the energy, the anger, the honesty, the messaging, the delivery, the riffage, just everything you really want. And that singer's tenacity just carries over. I have had many people who I never thought would recommend this type of music to me tell me I have to check them out. I trust me, I've checked them out many times. Brandon turned me onto them in 2021 and I haven't stopped listening. But yeah, man, they are not just doing well for people that are actively searching for their music like you and I, but they're transcending to like greater heights. A lot of that I think is due not just to the quality of the album, which is fantastic. It's why it's my rock album of the year, but of the quality of their performances. Anybody who has not seen a video of them perform, even a fucking TV performance, they go all out. They do not stop, and it is just it's a wonder to behold. It is not even rare though in this day and age. There's a lot of bands trying to do what they're doing and doing it well. They're just doing it the best. So that's why it's my rock album of the year. Is this one in your top five, or is it also your rock album of the year?
it's not my rock album of the year, but it's definitely top five. Man, this album blew me away the first time I heard it. And like I think I said in my review, one of the things that really blows me away about it is the sequencing of it. Now, a lot of bands and artists in general get this wrong. They'll front load the side A and then side B is really small or it's really slow and it'll drop off really easily. They didn't do that. They did everything correctly on this one where they peppered in some of the slower songs, some of the more emotional songs with their absolute unhinged, heavier sound
Yep.
that they get. And yeah, I remember the first time I heard Drunk 2 off their album Romance, and I was just like, oh, this band better get big. And I am so glad that they are number one topping your list. That I'm surprised to beat out the Smile. But I
We'll
I
get there.
was yeah, I know we will. um, but not only topping your list, but so many other people. It's on so many people's radar, and it's on so many people's radar as one of the best albums of the year. And I don't even think that anybody could deny it at this point. They crushed it, and I am so glad they're getting their flowers, and I hope for many, many, many more flowers from for them in the future, for sure.
Well said, man. When you added that Control EP a few years ago, I really liked it. I did not
Right.
anticipate me loving their full-length album that they would follow it up with this much. So, shout out to Mannequin Pussy. Brandon, what is your rock album of the year?
You know, John, before I say the album, I
Yeah,
had a lot of I noticed something about myself as I
what's
was
that?
prepping for this episode. I am really lenient on rock. I had 1, 5, 1, 3. Everything else was 6 and above,
Wow.
which is interesting for me. Maybe I just really like rock music, which is the case. But
Huge if true.
huge if true. Man, there were a number of nines that I gave. I gave a 10 in this category if you count Delving's All Parts
Hmm.
Diverge as rock music, which
Yeah.
yeah, you have to, right? That wasn't
Yes.
my favorite album this year, though. My favorite rock album this year was a more recent album, just in the last few weeks. In Angles, The Light We Can't Escape is my number one album. I cannot stop
Yes.
listening to it. It's like every time I listen to it, I do a line. It is. Uh, and like after 35 minutes, I'm like, get better do that again. And it's just incredible, man. I'm just addicted to it. And there are many, many, many great to fantastic albums that we're going to talk about on this episode, but that one is my standout of the year for sure.
It's got the juice. It's just got that sound to it. Like you really can't. I used to say it about Chiodos all the time back in the day, like something about the way their guitars sound with the way it's mixed and the way it all just comes together. It's so specific and it sounds so simple when you're listening to it, but it's everything. It's so hard to explain, but there's something about it, man. I was listening to this album a few times this week. This is also, let me see, I think number 4 for me. Very high up. Melonhead is one of my favorite songs of the year. But I
Riff.
think that was the lead single. Open season, 2 weeks. Like there is some backbone. Goddamn, 6 a.m. There is. I could read just the track list, and it's all heaters, man. This album rocks. And I mean, we kind of figured that would be the case based on their last album. I don't remember if that cracked any of our album of the year lists. I think it might have cracked yours,
I
but
think it
but
did.
we kind of knew they were capable of something like this, and it's great to see them deliver because this is excellent.
You're right. It's excellent. And I like I almost because of how short it's been since its release, I almost like wanted to not pick something else. And I was going through some of my contenders and listening to the albums again. And I just every single day I've just been, well, I guess it's time for In Eagles.
And that's the way it should be,
Right.
honestly.
That's just the way that it is, man. If I'm gravitating towards it, I'm not going to sit here and lie to me, and I'm definitely not going to sit here and lie to you, nor the people that listen to us. So that's my album of the year for rock music, man. It's a great record.
When you just said Lie to Me by Like Roses just started like playing in my head and I almost started singing it out. We'll get to them
Please,
later in
please
the
do.
all right, my next favorite album of the year in terms of rock. This could be all over the place. Soft Play, Heavy Jelly. This
Ooh.
is rock, um,
Yeah,
punk,
let's call it that.
hardcore.
Yeah,
This is it's
it's
a little bit of
punk-ish.
everything. I've always kind of I don't want to paint with a broad brush, but I think two pieces generally sound kind of lame, with the exception of like the White Stripes. These guys have erased any preconceived notions I've had of what a two-piece band can do and sound like. Their live shows as well as like Mannequin Pussy kind of bring it up a level, seeing their energy, the way they deliver these songs. is just as important as the album itself to me. This is also like a huge album in terms of their discography because they were notoriously known as Slaves from the UK before this. Obviously, a terrible name for whatever
Terrible name.
reasons they had it for, justified or not, or in their own head. But this man, this was everything I could have wanted. The lead singles, Punk's Dead, Mirror Muscles, both among my songs of the year, dude. I think the album artwork for this one is iconic. They just nailed it, man. I love listening to this. Maybe not every song is like a 5 out of 5, but I don't skip any of it. I have so much fun when I listen to it. And I feel like it's an album that only they could make, which is always something I find unique and I really enjoy. What about this one for you? Was this on your list at all?
You know, man, I really like this album. I don't think it cracked my top five, but if I was picking a top 10, it'd be up there.
For sure.
It's a great record, man. They turned like as their fuzz turned up, so did the rage, and then so did like everything else around them. And there, like you said, there's something to be said about it. I don't think anybody else on my list on the 90 albums that we reviewed in rock music this year, I don't think anybody else could do it the way that they did it. Um, and yeah, this album's great, bro. This is a great record. Lots of
There,
fun. There's a party, and then there's also that soft emotional side. And just like the Mannequin Pussy album, I think that they sequenced it very, very well.
Johnny Rotten is turning in his bed. I was gonna say grave, but the fucker ain't dead. One of my favorite lyrics of the year. Just incredible, incredible. What's your next one, man?
You know, man, I think it's gonna be Vampire Weekend's Only God Was Above Us.
Hot take.
I don't know
No,
about a hot take, man.
I'm
Maybe to
joking.
you.
Yes,
I
exactly.
loved this album, man. I can't.
You did.
Like in Angles, I never stopped going back to this one, man.
Did you give it a
This one
nine?
I did give it a
Yeah,
9 when we reviewed it.
you did. Yep.
It's they surprised they were the surprise ad at Coachella this year where they brought out Paris Hilton for some weird fucking reason. And they stayed relevant all year, man. I couldn't stop listening to it. I've seen a lot of music nerds talk about it on Rate Music, on Reddit, on some of the other forums that I frequent, and I've seen a lot of love for this album. I've also seen quite a bit of not hate. I don't think I would call it hate. I think I would call it hype aversion from people, which
Interesting.
is valid. I'm that way. So on a lot of things, and maybe just got a soft spot for this weird kind of indie kind of weird vibey nerd shit, you know?
You do, and I love that about you. This one was not on my list, but speaking to what you were just saying in terms of like what you've seen in the response to it online, I saw a lot of acclaim for this album when it came out, like tons of it. And I'm not even in a circle where I really see Vampire Weekend stuff. It kind of transcended to, I guess, broader online discussions about music, which is very good for them to be in those discussions. But I wouldn't say I saw any hate for this as much as I just saw the talk around it quickly dissipate, which has a lot more to do with people's musical attention spans nowadays than probably the quality of the record if you enjoy it. Because,
About 24 seconds.
yes, yeah, yeah, man, what's the time limit on TikTok? Like it
Right.
is. It's sad that that's kind of where we're at. That is not the reason I did not enjoy this album. This is not usually my bag. This one just didn't land for me, but I'm not surprised at all. I was almost anticipating it to be maybe number one because I remembered you loving it quite a bit.
Yeah, man. Classical is just a classic in my household at this point. I listen to it all the time.
Did they end up playing Coachella too as like a surprise act week one?
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, that's right. That's always cool. I wonder who's going to end up getting that spot this year. It was Arcade Fire the year before,
Can't
then
be them.
last year. Should be
Can't be them.
interesting.
Win Butler's probably busy with Tame Impala, so it
It's
couldn't be
not
them this year.
lineup
It's
subject to change. Let's
I
get a
hope
little
it's
B. Let's
Mannequin
get the
Pussy.
bass god out there.
Oh my God.
I actually saw him one year at Coachella, and it was on like Not a stage, not one of the Coachella stages. It was like one of the ones when you're walking from the campground to like the ticket thing. It was pretty random, but very cool. Um,
Nice.
all right, man. Next one up for me. Oh man, tough one to call. I got a few more I want to talk about amongst my favorites, but I think the next ones I got to talk about are The Smile, Wall of Eyes slash Cutouts. Two, I am 100% sure not on your list. We've never really agreed about The Smile, but you did enjoy these ones more than you have their previous efforts. I enjoyed these a lot. I think that it when Cutouts came out, I thought I preferred that one. I think I had a little bit of recency bias. Wall of Eyes is my favorite of the two the longer I sat with it. One of my most played albums of the year in the genre by far. It's just got something I really enjoy. Read the Room hits every time I put that song on. I'm a big fan of the overall sound of these, but I do get why they might not crack everybody's list this year. They cracked mine though. Big fan. What
So
is
I gave cutouts a 7. I gave Wall of Eyes a 9. I'm gonna go ahead and stick with both of those scores, even though
hell yeah.
neither are gonna end
Keep
up
that
on
same
my
energy.
year end.
Yes, well, I appreciate you at least not retroactively bumping them down. I think they're
No.
both really, really good albums, and those scores are probably the same for me, honestly. And now, I think I would settle there as well. But yeah, I totally get you leaving space for other acts. And what are those other acts?
Uh, well, I honestly, if you had told me that this was going to be up there in my top 5, I would have been like, "You sure, bro?" But it's 4 Year Strong's Analysis Paralysis, man.
Wow, I didn't have this one on my radar at all. What did you end up giving that album?
I gave this a 9 when we reviewed it,
That's
and while I
right.
was doing research for this episode, I went back and listened to it. I listened to it again today. My God, man, this album is good.
I'm gonna have to revisit it. I know I have a song or two of it from on my Scene Isn't Dead playlist, and I always love it when that stuff comes on. They're just blend of like pop punk and breakdowns is really, really fun when they do it right. I think that sometimes they didn't do it on this album the way I wanted them to, which is more of a me issue, but they did the 4 year strong thing, no doubt, and it's a lot of fun.
Like I said, if you had told me last year 4 Year Strong is going to be your number 3 or 4, I would have been like, shut up. But no, man, it's real. Like I said, I'm not going to sit here and lie to anybody about it. This is a great album, and it nothing. There's nothing. Well, there's a lot serious in the lyrical content, but it's not.
Sure.
They don't take themselves seriously enough for you to sit there and like brood about it. This album is just catchy and fun and it breakdowns in all the right places, heavy in all the right places, and man, I really liked this one.
That's a great pick, man. I love you throwing that one on here. Um, all right, my next one is I don't really have much to say about it. We just talked about it a few weeks ago. It feels like High Viz Guided Tour. This album is just rad, and I've seen it on way more like best of the year lists than I anticipated. I didn't really know it was hitting like that, but it's really cool to see more people resonating with this than just me. The sound is great, man. I don't think that there's a skip on it. It flows so seamlessly. I love the singer's voice just hits me, man. And that's one of those things that like a singer can be good or get better or worse, but it's just they either have it or they don't. And the second I heard this guy start going, I was like, "Yep, follow."
Yep, he's
Love
got it.
this album, man. What about you? Was this one still in your rotation at all?
Actually, I listened to this one again today.
Fuck yeah.
I really like this album, man. They did it. They did what they do well, and they added quite a bit of non. So High Viz has made like way harder core music, and this was the anomaly for them. And I actually hope that they stick to this more softer sound, if you could call it that. There's plenty of heavy on this album, if you want to
Hmm.
call it that. But I really, really liked what they did with what they had. This is a good fun and serious album.
Yeah, dude, I thought they absolutely crushed it. Mine's a Lie. I still listen to that one every few days. It's
Oh
just
yeah.
so good, man. Great, great album. What's your next one?
My next one is going to have to be Delving's All Paths Diverge, or All Parts Diverge, rather. I gave this one a 10 when it came out. I'm
Yeah.
sticking with that. It's a great fucking perfect hour. It is not traditional in any sense of the rock world. And if you told, if you asked anybody on the street what they thought of this Delving, I'd be very surprised if you caught one of their 200 listeners on Spotify to ask them.
Yeah.
But I really really like this album, man. It's so good. It is one of those get lost in a trance, but with guitar albums, and that is the soundscapes that they were able to make with this record are special, and they deserve to be shouted out again. And like I said, this is a 10. It's my only 10 in rock this year. It wasn't my favorite album, but it is definitely my highest score, and I will stick to that.
Yeah, it's funny. I actually did revisit this one, not today, but this week when you sent me kind of the breakdown of our scores from the year, because I was like, damn, Brandon gave that one a 10. I kind of forgot. I got to go back to it. It still didn't really crack my list, but I do fucking think it's a great album for what it is.
Perfect album.
Undeniable, like the talent that they have, the way that they execute. It's really fucking good. And I was actually having a conversation earlier with a friend today about the whole rating something higher but it not being your favorite. Two things can be true. You could think something is a perfect work of art and like something that isn't perfect more. That is kind of possible. Most people
Of
act like
course,
that's
bro.
sacrilege.
I
Just because you gave
love
something a 10 doesn't mean it's forever your favorite.
I think Monet's bridge painting is incredible, but I prefer Need for Speed Underground 2's level of artwork, you know? Like I'm allowed to do that.
And that is why you are my co-host. Why do we not have a Need for Speed 2 Underground remaster yet? Like all these games have been remastered, remade. There's four different versions of The Last of Us 1, but we can't get a Need for Speed 2 remaster for modern fucking consoles. This is
Real,
ridiculous.
real.
We can get a
We're
Tony
gonna
Hawk 1 and 2 remake with full soundtrack, but we can't get a Need for Speed 2 Underground fucking remake.
come
Bullshit.
on, Snoop, cover the doors again.
Give me my Mitsubishi Eclipse and get the fuck out of my way. You got any more in terms of like your strong contenders before we broaden it?
Yeah, I've got one more.
Go for it.
It's Dives Frog and Boiling Water.
Mm,
That was that's gonna round out my top five here. This is a fantastic album, man. It's actually on a number of lists. I saw it on a lot of lists. The drums on this
yeah.
album are just immaculate. It's silky, it's glittery, it's shoegazy, it's electronic with all that synth work on it. It really is a fantastic record. And it definitely rounds out my top five.
It's a very solid album. It didn't quite crack my list, but I do remember this one pretty vividly in the week that we reviewed it because I that was the first time I'd really dove into their stuff and I did the full discography thing. And I do think I agree with you. It's a fantastic album. I also don't even know if it's near even one of their best albums or better albums. I think it's a great album as it relates to modern music, but yeah, I don't know if it's one of my favorite Dive albums, but I do agree with your notes on it, especially the synth work, man. Really appreciate that stuff.
Love that.
The only one I have left in terms of my strong contenders is Real Deal by Honey Glaze. This one,
That's right.
I don't remember when it came out, but whenever it hit my ears, it went platinum in this household right away. This one fucking rules. I admit that I probably listen to the song Don't more than I listen to the whole album, but anytime I go through it all, it's great. This album kind of knocked bands like Last Dinner Party down a peg for me. This is what I was looking for when we were getting a lot of other good music, and this came across as just instantly great, and I fell in love with it, man. Was this one in your like rotation at all this week?
I listened to it once this week,
Fair.
but I just so I had sent you that what your favorite album of the year
Hmm.
says about you, and strange that they didn't have in angles on there to roast me for, but the Last Dinner Party uh entry was hilarious. It was it was basically like, oh, you finally found this female band that has a bunch of bands that do it better, and then like listed Honey Glaze as one of them. And yeah, I'm gonna go ahead
Shout
and
out
to
Honey Glaze.
say yep, shout out to Honey Glaze. Thank you for that.
It's probably an unnecessarily cruel comment, but it's a funny meme, so you got to roll with it, you know.
I mean,
Uh,
yeah, I absolutely I respect Last Dinner Party. In fact, we watched their stream at Coachella this year. Was that this year or last year? I don't know. Time doesn't exist, but
I think this year.
I really enjoyed their passion on stage
No, they're good. They
and
are
yeah,
very
they're
good.
good music. I just think Honey Glaze does that sound a little better.
Industry plants can be good too. All right, let's let's broaden the conversation, and I'm going to ask you a question to start it off. I'm shocked Idols did not crack your top five.
I know. It's
Are they in
funny,
your
man.
next tier down?
Yeah, let's call it that. I actually gave them an 8.5. Between an 8 and a
Hmm.
9 is what I call an 8.5 on this rating scale for this episode's purpose. And I
Yeah,
revisited this album and I like it a lot. We threw the record on a few weeks ago as well. And I really I love this band. Obviously, Idols is becoming one of the more important rock bands of our time, and they've been fucking everywhere over the last handful of years since Joy is an Act of Resistance came out. They've just been crushing it critically and socially, and
I agree.
I I think I still prefer Joy to the majority of their music, but this album is a
Yeah.
step in a direction that I think that they're probably going to stick to. So why not stick to it? And I think that they do this sound really well. Shout out to Kenny Beats for
Why
producing a
don't they
lot of
let them
this.
use the producer tag in their music? I want to hear a Woe Kenny in an Idols song just once. Just once.
Imagine, bro. That sounds so much fun. That sounds like so much fun.
Oh, what? We don't have enough fun in music. I agree, man. Another one that I'll kind of dish back to you here in a second, but it's not on my list. Probably should be Fontaine's DC Romance, an album that has gotten immense critical acclaim, deservedly so. Just not one of my favorite albums because there was a lot of great albums in the genre this year, but one that kind of took me by surprise in how well it was received. Were you surprised by like kind of how everywhere this album is now?
They're doing the whole proto martyr thing where they make a couple of great post-punk albums and they get really popular and then they make the same music again and then it will slowly decline. Hopefully that's not the case for them, but I was surprised at how I think last year Skinty Fio was their album, not last year,
Yeah,
maybe the year before.
year
But
before.
Skinty Fio was the album, and they hit like a couple of lists, like really low down on the list, and everybody was like, "This is the band to look out for." I'm really glad that they are getting very popular. I hope it doesn't change their sound much. I really want to hear. I really want to continue to hear more from them, even though this is a little bit of a step in a different direction. It still very much has that Irish Fontaine's DC blood
Yes.
in it, you know?
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Jokes aside, The Last Dinner Party, Prelude to Ecstasy is definitely an album worth checking out in terms of the indie alternative scene this year. It's a very unique kind of this Baroque pop aesthetic to it. I do like it. I'm a fan. I think that this album is really well produced. It sounds very polished for a group so early in their career. And yeah, I just wanted to at least give it one shout out. I do think it's a good album. What about you?
Yeah,
Did
for sure.
um few artists, man, that we just gotta shout out albums that may not have like hit us as much as the top tens did, but like Biba Doobie and Soccer Mommy both put out phenomenal projects this year. And I feel like they're always slept on, even though they do get critical acclaim, but we'd be doing a disservice if we did not say Soccer Mommy and Biba Doobie this year, man. Both of those albums were really good. What are some of the ones you got?
Maybe Doobie playing at Coachella this year should be fun. I think Soccer Mommy's album was not as I didn't like it as much as I liked her last record,
That
which
album's
is
like an
fine.
that album might be her best album though, that
Right,
last
right, right,
one.
right,
That
right,
shit's
right.
fire.
Yeah, there's a handful. The Cure put out a fantastic
Oh
record
yeah.
this year.
Yep.
I think I liked it way more than you did, but that
You
doesn't
did.
really matter.
You did. It
An
doesn't.
album we covered super early in the year, that I think is skipping everybody's lists because they're not very well known in the world. But the Pineapple Thief dropped It Leads to This,
Ooh, deep cut.
which is this really cool, like proggy, kind of rocky, like. They take the things from Porcupine Tree and the things from what's a Perfect Circle that I really like, and they put them together, and then they put out this album, and it's like, wow, I really like it. Nobody's talking about it except for fans of Porcupine Tree and their side projects.
Your comparisons are out of control. Everybody knows that, man. That was perfect. Um, One we did not talk about this album, and that's on me. Nilia Yanya, I threw a song or two of hers on the playlist this week. She put out an album called My Method Actor. It's kind of in that indie alt, but maybe also like a tiny bit R&B, kind of like Orion Sun sound. Love this one. We do need to talk about it someday on a slow week. Do you know who this artist is? Have you seen this name?
I've only seen the name because you threw it on the playlist this week.
Did you get a chance to check that song out or recognize it when it was playing at all?
No, I did not recognize it at all, but I did check it out. I actually thought it was really good, and
Yeah.
there's a couple artists on the playlist you threw on this week that I was like, where have you been hiding things?
I man, some of these I'm not really hiding. Some of them I discover when I'm putting these lists together. That's why they don't
Right.
really come together.
I
I'm
assumed.
surprising myself as well, Brandon. What's your next one?
Let's see here. Let's talk about another deep cut here that I gave an 8.5 to Blankets album
Yeah.
Ceremonia. I was a big fan of this record. They
Hmm.
have this shoegaze kind of pseudo post-hardcore sound to it, and you put those two things together, and you've got Brandon hooked. So it's just got the sound, man. It's got the hum sound. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I really liked this record when it came out. You can, if anybody goes and revisits my review like I did, I remember really liking it. I've revisited the album quite a bit. I actually listened to a couple of songs from it today, even, and yeah, it still's up.
Yeah, it is very good. Man, I feel like every year I just get more and more into shoegaze right now, which has honestly been really fun. I love
Right,
exploring this
right.
genre. It's great. I just don't know how to listen to anything other than slow dive sometimes, so I do need to listen to that more. An album I definitely have to shout out, Willow and Pathogen. This girl's been on a
Yes.
fucking tear this decade, and we were all like, "Ah, Travis Barker produced pop punk album from like an alt pop star. That's cute." Oh, a kind of decent screamo album. That's cool. Oh, you're doing complex math rock now. Like, what the fuck is going on? And it's great. I threw this album on like 2, 3 days ago, man, and I wasn't just like, oh yeah, this still hits. I was blown away again. Like, this shit is
Yeah.
so good. The time changes, just her vocal instincts at this point have just hit a point of comfort and confidence where she doesn't give a fuck if it doesn't work. She's gonna try it, and it's probably gonna work because she's talented enough. Uh, I don't know, man. Nepotism works sometimes. I think this is a great case of that. Uh, I remember you liking this one quite a bit as well.
I love this album, John. This album is great. Anybody who's not listening to Willow because of her relation to Will Smith is quite honestly silly at this point because she's making some of the best music that she's ever made and some of the best music of the year. There's really no doubt about it. I think that if Willow had dropped in a year that didn't have bands like the fucking Cure and in Angles dropping, then she might have had it. She might have had a bigger audience. But I honestly think that the nepotism works line that you used is cute, but the reality is I don't think that nepotism is really working for her. I think that people really don't like her because of her association with Will Smith at this point. Additionally, I think that
Interesting.
the nepotism might be working for her on the money end of things to get her all of the studio time that she wants and all of the
Well,
producers that she wants, which is fine, but that's less nepotism, more just being in wealthy. So which is fine, as long as you use that to make art the way that you do. And honestly, bro, Willow crushed this album. She has, like you said, she's been having a hell of a decade, and I can't help but appreciate her for it.
What's next? What subgenre? Are we going like doom metal? Like what is she
I
gonna
would
do
I would
next?
love, honestly, Blood Incantation missed out by not having her on the album during one of those Pink Floyd breaks.
You're
Let's
fucking
just let's
right.
just let's just put that out
Blood
there.
Incantation
Um
Willow, bring that on, please.
that would have been great, man. All right,
What do
I've
you got
got one for
next?
you.
Yeah.
One that kind of surprised me, but like also was like, oh, no, you know what? That makes sense. When they showed up on my Spotify Wrapped, Cloud Nothings put out an album called Final
Yes.
Summer. They were
Yeah.
my second most listened to band or artist on Spotify. Now, my numbers are a little skewed on Spotify because I listen to music on YouTube Music, on Tidal, on Spotify, on my turntable. There's on Bandcamp pretty frequently. So, but the fact that it made it is kind of
Yep.
crazy. And I really love them for that. They put out a great album in Final Summer. I gave it an 8 when it dropped, and it most definitely deserves that. It might even deserve a little more. It's one of those records that just it stuck with me, like pretty much all of their albums do, and I'm happy for them.
Yeah, man, you introduced me to them and they are nothing but quality, dude. They also put out that 10th anniversary of Here and Nowhere Else that I don't think we talked about, but was had some pretty good stuff on it. These guys just don't miss. It's a really good album. We probably should have mentioned it a little earlier, so I'm glad you brought it up.
Of course, we have to.
One more before we kind of broaden things a little bit more. Sleater Kinney, Little Rope, got to shout out Portland. I'm gonna be honest, I've like always liked Sleater Kinney, but this album kind of like cemented it for me, man. It's just got that heavy garage sound that I was looking for when it came out, and I'm a big fan. I wasn't sure that would be the case with kind of their lineup changes, with I believe one of their long-term members leaving like a year or two ago at this point. I was worried that the sound would change a little bit. It really did not. I think they still sound great, man. I don't remember this one being like super high up for you, but I do remember you kind of liking it.
I actually gave it an 8, and this was going to be my next shout out before we broaden things again.
God
So
damn
thank
it.
you for doing that. Yeah, this is it's a Sleater Kinney album, man.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And that's what we were worried. Is it going to be a Sleater Kinney album still? And it was. So,
Yeah.
thumbs
I
up.
think I think it released early enough, and we had so many bangers this year that it won't
It was
end
like
up on many
January.
year-end lists.
Yeah.
Yeah, it won't end up on a lot of year-end lists, and I don't think that a lot of people are going to be talking about it because I mean, the reality is that people really only talked about Sleater Kinney when it was 2011 or something like that, and of Monsters and Men, or I'm sorry, of Monsters and Men were on MTV still because MTV still existed or something. But it's one of those things that it's one of those albums that like really did get me this year, you know?
MTV still exists. It's just a format of airing ridiculousness over and over and over again.
You know, man, if you had the ability to make money off of Rob Deerdeck forever, you wouldn't take it?
I mean, I'll
Like
pay Rob
forever.
Dyrdek $1 million just for that clip of him constantly hitting Chanel West Coast with the dodgeball in the face. That shit is forever. Shout out Big as well. RIP.
Yes.
All right, man. Let's just talk about anything you want here. I got a few EPs I got to shout out. Driveways, Tempest. We got a new
Oh yeah.
Driveways project this year, and
Oh yeah, we did.
they are going on tour early next year, hitting the West Coast. Sadly, that does not mean Oregon or Washington, so I don't have the chance to see them, but they are hitting a
Well,
good amount of
well,
California.
well, the West Coast definitely means Oregon and Washington, but when bands tour, just like a North America tour doesn't really include like Canada or Mexico. You know what I mean?
Yes. Well,
Uh, Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, if they're afraid to tour here, I will personally guard their bus from the fentanyl users of downtown Portland
What are you
and
talking
make sure
about,
their
bro?
stuff is safe.
The fentanyl users aren't the ones they got to worry about. Those dudes are nodding out like
Find the
little
fentanyl
zombies.
dealers of downtown Portland.
That's right. That's what they're worried about.
This
Oh, that's
project
funny.
is great. It's also one of their heaviest. Some of the breakdowns on here kind of like I was like, God damn, they're dropping things a bit, and I'm here for it.
Yeah, John, we talk a lot about bands who get softer, and that happens about 9 times out of 10. But there is a 10th time out of 10 where a band gets heavier. And this
Mhm.
band, I went back. So this Halloween, I decided we were throwing on some Halloween music, or this October.
Doesn't
I
get
threw on
better
some
than
driveways
driveways.
and you're right. It threw on some driveways and I was kind of like in the mood for like some punk rock or whatever, but like I was mainly thinking like some Misfits or some AFI or,
Sure.
some zombie ghost train. But I threw driveways on anyway because I was like, punk rock, Halloween, let's go. Let's put up some decorations. This band gets heavier and heavier with every release because I put them on in chronological order and it was pop punk. And then all of a sudden it's not, you can't call it pop punk anymore. And God, I love them for that.
Yeah, yeah, it's a core of some kind. Who the fuck knows which
There's
one?
some core in there. Just call it whatever.
It's a core of some kind. October Forever has been in my like Spotify Wrapped every year since it's come out, man. I just can't stop listening to them. They are so good. What's a
That's
project you want to
amazing.
shout out?
I want to shout out a cute little project from Cage the Elephant. They put out Neon Pill. A lot of people
Yeah?
didn't like it. A lot of people haven't liked their music since post Mellophobia. Some people don't even like Mellophobia, but I've liked every project they've ever put out, and this one is no exception. I gave it an 8 when we reviewed it. Cage the Elephant, despite some issues with the lead singer earlier in the year. I really really enjoy this album and this
Mhm.
band and the writing from Matt and the rest of the band. And let's go. Continue to do the thing. Cage the Elephant.
LFG. Yeah, I didn't love that one. I am in that crowd you were speaking of, but I do get you shouting it out. As somebody who has enjoyed their music quite a bit throughout the years, I do still have a soft spot for Cage the Elephant when I hear him. Like Roses, Stuck. They just put this EP out in December, so we haven't talked about it, but it is just one new song with like the last three songs that they put out. So you've pretty much
Oh,
heard it
so
all.
so it's all bangers.
Yeah, exactly. It is 4 out of 4. And honestly, like I'm still like I'm happy, I'm grateful, I'm not satisfied. I need like 12 songs of whatever. It's like the In Angles thing. Like they have that same just like I don't know how you got this sound, but never change it. Like it is
Right.
so good. It is so dialed in. Her voice, man, just it is flawless to me. I don't get tired of listening to it, and that is a rarer quality in today's music. What's the
You
next
know,
project you want to shout out? Or do you want to
uh,
say something about this one?
No, I guess I just want to say something about shout out to the producers who have a formula that works
Yeah.
and they go for it. And sometimes producers don't even like the music that they're doing. Like when you look at like even Cloud Nothings has this sound that was really created with Steve Albini in the studio.
Yeah.
A tortured and controversial man, but you can't deny the dude had a sound. And Cloud Nothing's moving forward with that sound is great. But when you get people like whoever produces like Roses, I hope they never change it, like you said.
Yeah. I think that they went through a period of inactivity a few years ago, and this is kind of just like their slow run back and packaging all of the singles that they've put out since that run is the step towards whatever's next. I mean, they've been on the road a lot too, which shout out to them. I
Good
love a
for
band that
them.
just gets back on the road and plays shows like they never stopped, man. Great band. Can't wait to see what's next. What's next for you, man?
So, like I said, we reviewed 90 albums. So I've got like a handful of albums I want to
Yeah,
chat
shoot,
with you about here.
shoot.
So number one, a surprise album that I really thought that I was not gonna like when it dropped, and then you and I ended up really liking it. Kasabian's album Happenings.
Oh, interesting one. Yeah, I do remember liking this one quite a bit more than their last album. Correct?
You
Yeah.
did.
Yeah, interesting one. I
This
get it.
this one surprised me a little bit. I actually threw on, I have an album of the year playlist, obviously, and I threw that on the other day, and a Kasabian song came on, and my wife goes, "Who is this?" And I was like, "Kasabian." She was like, "Oh, oh, I remember them."
Yeah,
And
I feel like
it's
they are one of those bands now.
yeah, but it's kind of funny because like nobody, I mean I can't speak for everybody, but I didn't really like their last album, and you didn't like their last album, and I was really kind of like bummed that we were never going to get something from them, but I guess having my expectations so low, they ended up becoming they ended up making a really good album this year. So shout out to them. Keep this sound, whatever you're doing.
Yeah. I agree. I think they're on the upswing right now. So let's just stay on that trajectory.
Right.
Uh, I got three EPs that I'm just gonna say. We don't have to
Let's
ruminate on
go.
any of them individually. Choke Cherry, Messy Star, Girl
Oh,
Scout
good.
Headache, Soft Cult Heaven. All three of these are just fucking great. I think all three like female indie grunge singers. I definitely have a type when it comes to this type of music. It is reflected here. Man, the EP is kind of a lost art, but I needed a section to kind of talk about some of my favorites because I feel like there were so many quality EPs this year where I'm like, God damn, like it's not as substantial as an album, but I definitely enjoy it just as much. And that's the case for these three.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I really like these, man. I think you threw all of these on, and I'm so
I
grateful
did.
because
Yes.
I throw a lot of electronic EPs and a lot of like death metal EPs on, but you've been really consistent with how much rock you've thrown on in the EP world, and so cheers to you, my
Ryan,
man.
thank you, buddy. What do you got next?
What do I have next here? Let's see. St. Vincent released not only one All Born Screaming album, but two All Born Screaming albums, one of which is in full fucking Spanish.
Yeah, that's pretty fucking rad.
I really liked All Born Screaming. I gave it an 8, and she went on tour, realized that a lot of her Spanish speaking fans were singing all of her music in perfect English. And she was like, why the hell aren't I giving them the same music in the language that they are fluent in and speak? Like, why can't I do the same thing that they do for me? And so she went and got a coach and learned Spanish and rocked the fuck out on All Born Screaming in Spanish. And that is just mad respect to St. Vincent. Couldn't let this episode go on without at least mentioning that really cool thing. And also, I really like the album. I really like the English album that I listened to.
I have been notoriously hard on St. Vincent since we started
You
doing the
have,
podcast,
you
and
have.
that was one I couldn't hate on. I really liked the album.
It's a
I
good
think
one.
Big Time Nothing is like one of the better alt rock songs of the year. No complaints.
Real,
Thumbs up, man. Good song.
real. I've got
Um,
two Screamo albums I want to talk
yeah,
about.
let's talk a little Screamo. Go for it.
So we didn't listen to a lot of it this year. We listened to
No.
a couple albums, but Blind Girls and
Hmm.
Cinema both released albums this year, both of which I gave eights, both
Yep.
of which are just passionate entries in the screamo world, and they needed to be mentioned this episode because it's kind of one of those things where it's like they're definitely not metal, but it's way too heavy to be rock.
Okay, so then I should just say "See You, Space Cowboy" coup de grace here.
No, 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 because that's a core. This
Okay, okay. You didn't hear that.
would be
You
something
did.
else.
We'll talk about that one next week. Yeah,
We're
but yeah.
definitely talking about that next week.
Um, Stateside, they put out a killer EP recently. What was
Yep.
that one called? Songs to Remember You by. Just it's short, three songs, really, really good. Since last season was my favorite of that bunch. We didn't get a new Silverstein album. We have two coming next year, but we did get a few new songs I enjoyed. A lot of good screamo this year, I feel like.
Yep. 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 I would agree with that. I would agree with that.
We had some good pop punk as well. Mayday Parade was out there doing their thing. Uh, Prom, kind of back to the screamo sound, but yeah, we Second Harbor. There was a lot of good up and coming acts this year as well. It is getting harder and harder to kind of separate like Like bands like Mannequin Pussy, where I think 20 years ago that would have been considered scene. I do think they even tour with like a lot of bands that are considered scene. So it is a kind of a hard line to draw because I would not really lump them in with that crowd necessarily, but I guess you could, right?
Maybe, sure. Why not? Deathcore bands used to tour with metalcore bands, used to tour with emo bands, used to. I remember I went to a
Tyga opened
show.
for Fall Out Boy.
Yeah,
Okay.
like, come on, man. Why are we worried about that? Fuck genres. It's all house music. Uh,
Best tag
one
ever.
one of my favorite punk rock, like pure punk rock. There's nothing else you could possibly describe it as. The Chisels album, What a Fucking Nightmare.
Ooh.
Have you revisited this one since we
I
talked
have
about it?
not. No, I haven't.
It's a good one, man. Anytime I was in the mood for punk rock this year, I threw this one on, and this one it scratched the itch for sure.
I'm gonna have to circle back to that one. This conversation is already making me just want to circle back to a lot of these. I don't have any like more specific albums to shout out. I do have a little more to talk about. Do you have any more albums you want to talk about before we move on a little bit?
One more I just want to shout
Yeah.
out. Very, very small band, self-released. I loved it. I actually did revisit it this week just to see if maybe I needed to up the score. And I probably would if I had to do my review again after sitting with it for so long. A Modest Proposal, Let Them Smell Their Flowers.
Ooh, good
Small
pick.
little band. They have the sound like we've been talking about.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, they definitely fall into that group. Good pick, man. Great pick. All right. Favorite song. What's been your
Ooh.
jam this year?
Ooh, that's so hard, man.
I can go
Oh
first if
man.
you need some time to
Go ahead,
think.
go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
I actually have two. This is the first week that I've had two that I cannot differentiate between. Mirror Muscles by Soft Play. G- I, I love this song. His lyrics are so good. The delivery is fantastic. And Don't by Honey Glaze, which late comer for me this year, but a song I just cannot stop listening to. I don't be surprised if that's near the top of my Spotify Wrapped next year. What are some of your favorites?
Man, it's actually from an album that we didn't even talk about on this
What's
episode,
that?
which maybe we should have mentioned. It's Hunger Pangs by
Ooh,
Drugs.
Drugs. Yep. I mean, kind of
That
a core
song,
too, though.
yeah, that's I'm sure. Where do you put that one, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Gent.
go ahead and say that it's more rock than metal, but I mean, if we're
I am
calling that,
too.
all right, that's what I figured. And
If
then
LS Dunes is rock, Drugs is rock.
Right, exactly. And then I think I have to go with let's see here. It's off of this album. Forgetting the name here. One second. Why is my Spotify taking my entire fucking life to load?
Why don't you use
Uh
title Lossless Motherfucker?
I bet you it would load faster, you piece of shit.
Probably would.
It's off of Mannequin Pussy's album I Got Heaven. It's not Loud Bark, not the one that we threw on the playlist. I don't know why it's not loading on
I
on my
mean that it
computer.
could literally be any song on
Yeah,
that fucking.
you could throw a dart at it, right?
The title track is a ripper, but yeah, I feel like I feel like I even know the song you're talking about, and I can't even think of it.
Right.
Um, Nothing like I don't know you. Okay, okay, okay. Go softly of her.
Oh,
Yeah,
of her. That's the one.
yes. I think that was your standout as well.
Yep. That's the one.
Uh, Favorite artist this year amongst the genre, it's Driveways for me, man. They put out a project just in time, reeled me back in. Can't wait to see what's next. What about you?
Man, I think I'm gonna have to go with my favorite artist this year, man. That's a crazy ask. Yeah, let's go ahead and go with Mannequin Pussy.
Love it. Disappointing releases in the genre. My man, I have a few. I got a few I
I
gotta air out here.
actually do as well. Let's go.
Let's go alternate. 21 Pilots for me. I loved the lead single. Still do. Overcompensate's a good song. I don't like this album at all. What's
Fair.
yours?
Rex Orange County, the Alexander
Oh,
Technique.
thank you. Thank you so much. That is on my list as well. Jesus, man. What a disappointment. Who Cares was like such a good album to go to this. I have no idea what happened. Um, Alan Raymond, this one fucking hurts me to say. I love
I
this guy.
know.
The All Alan Hour just did not connect for me. He's still got that voice. I'm more than sure he will make an album I enjoy immensely again. This one just was not it. What's your next one?
More so disappointing in that I fell victim to hype, and you know that I hate doing that. And then I
Hmm.
did it, and then I heard the album, and I was like, really? Nathaniel Rateliff and the Night Sweats.
Ooh, yes. Yes, great pick. I should have had that one on here as well. I think I just blacked it out.
I've
Yeah,
heard
man.
I've heard like a lot of songs from them that I like genuinely enjoy, you know? But this album wasn't it, man.
I mean, you were adding the singles as they got released, and I was like, man, like I was almost like I was like, I hope I don't hurt Brandon's feelings, like if he's really
Oh,
liking
please.
this band.
I
But
barely have feelings, John. You're never gonna hurt them. Please always argue with me when you
that's
want
why
to.
we're friends. Dominic Fike put out an EP this year that I almost forgot as soon as it came out, man.
Oh, I
It
definitely forgot that happened.
came out around Coachella, no announcement. I can see why from the label. It's called 14 Minutes, very original. Yeah, I didn't like it. Bad album. What's your next
Yep.
one?
Let's go with one that I really wanted to be better, and I was sad that it wasn't as good as I wanted it to be.
Yeah.
Lift Divers Bird Watching.
Ooh, yes. Yeah, you were a little disappointed by that one, weren't you?
I was, man. Exercise Your Demons is like a masterclass in ska pop punk, like for the
Yep.
modern age. Like it has everything that you would want. And then I was so excited for this one, and I gave it a 6.
Yep. Yep.
But like I'd given, I think Exercise Your Demons like a 9.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like there was a pretty stark drop off. There was a few that you were kind of disappointed with. I think it might fall under next week a little bit more, but I remember your Caligula's horse. Like I thought you were just gonna go, heels over head for that one. And man, no, you ended up being kind of cool on it, if I remember.
Yeah.
It happens. It happens. Sometimes the albums we're most excited for just don't deliver. That happens in life. Life isn't fair.
Right.
But I do kind of to that same point, man. I have like three that I don't think are bad albums by any means. They just weren't what I was just disappointed. Amyl and the Sniffers. I liked a few of the lead singles. I didn't love the album. Story So Far, again, liked like one or two of the singles, did not love the album. And that Faye Webster project, just big fan of her. Just found it a little drowsy. The little yachty stuff just didn't do much for me. Just kind of a meh on that one. Any more you want to touch on before we kind of talk about what we're looking forward to next year?
No, I'm just gonna agree with you on all of those picks. Those are great, disappointing picks. I went back to my Faye Webster review
Hmm.
a couple days ago, and was like, yeah, man, I remember this album being really bad.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I had high hopes for it, but
I
I had
wanted
hopes
to
for
like
it.
it. I wanted to like it more than I did, and that is saying something.
Yeah. Just didn't do it. All right, man.
Yep.
Most anticipated for next year. You can say whoever you want to release an album. I'm just gonna go off ones that I know have albums announced for next year. Anxious and LS Dunes are at the top of my list for man. I'm very, very excited to hear these projects in full. What about you?
Yeah, Anxious is probably going to top my list, but I have two Silverstein albums coming, and they're
Yes,
one
great.
of my favorite bands, and I'm
Hmm.
so fucking excited.
Yes, that's a very good pick, man.
Hopefully,
Yeah,
I hear a new song unreleased. I'm gonna go see them in at the end of this month. Oh my God, it's January already. What the hell?
dude. Time is not real anymore.
Time can't
This
exist. Like, really.
All right, man. Anything else you want to say about rock music?
Rock music is in a good place this year, probably better than it was last year, and I'm excited to see what the future holds for rock music as a whole, man. I'm very very excited for the future of guitar music, and I've been seeing a lot of videos of kids in their garages making music, and that makes me so happy. As long as children are in the garage making music, I think that rock music and guitar music will survive.
Love that. I'm just going to leave it at rock music is. I think that describes it perfectly. We
Boom.
will be back next week talking about our favorite metal releases of 2024 to cap off this series. Very
Brandon's
much
favorite
looking
day of the
forward.
year.
Yes, it is. Are you already just like getting ready for this, doing breathing exercises, push-ups, all that stuff?
Breathing exercises, you mean growling exercises? Yeah.
Opeth brought the Death Growls back. We'll
Oh
talk
my
about it.
God. We'll talk about it.
Uh, check our Instagram and Reddit. Search Brandon's Face Pod if you want all the latest updates, and follow the link in the show notes. That will guide you to our weekly rotating playlist. This last one will kind of have a hodgepodge of all of our favorite metal from the year, some new stuff on there to just kind of keep your ears perked up. And then after that, we will be moving into the new music reviews for 2025. Very much looking forward to it. Thank you all for listening. We'll see you next week. Peace.
Peace.